Andrea with Human Places LLC and Weichert Realtors, and I'm here to talk about the buyer consultation meeting, which is a really important first step in the home buying process. Very often I'll get calls from people and they've been on Zillow or they're driving around or even on my website, and they are very excited because they found what they think is the perfect house and they want to go see it right away. Ms. Realtor, can you go open the door for us so we can go see this house? The only problem with that is that we don't really know if you're qualified to buy that house or if that house really is still available. Sometimes for sale signs are still in the yard, even though a house has already been sold, or there's already offers in on a house and they're just making a final decision. So we want to make sure that we have done our homework and we're ready to make an offer on a house before we go see it. So the buyer consultation meeting is an important first step in this process before we go start looking for homes. So during this meeting, we're going to sit down and talk about what it is that you're looking for. What are all of your wants and needs in a new home? What is your timeline for moving? Is it crucial for you to move by a certain date, or do you have some time to spend? Do you have another home that you need to sell as part of the process, and how does that work? So we'll get all of those details from you, and what price range are you trying to stay within? You might qualify for a lot more than you actually want to spend, but we'll also need to talk about what do you qualify for. And that's another video. But from there, there's a whole bunch of paperwork that we need to go through too. I'm licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. In Virginia, there is considerably less paperwork for us to get through than there is in Maryland and DC. But Maryland especially has a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of different notices that we're required to give you, and the buyer representation agreement is particularly important in the state of Maryland, because without that agreement in place, no matter who the seller is, I represent the seller. And I am not allowed to advise you. I'm not allowed to tell you if that house is a good deal or not a good deal, or point out any flaws in the house, because I represent the seller, as long as I don't have a representation agreement in place. So it is really important, so that I can properly represent you, that we actually have that in place. So we'll go through the buyer representation agreement. One thing that does cover is commissions. Most of the time my commission is paid by the seller, but there are a few instances where that doesn't happen, and we'll talk about that. But most of the time it's paid by the seller. We'll also talk about dual agency. And in the state of Maryland, we need your permission up front for me to be able to show you properties that are listed by other Weichert Realtors in my office. And then if you decide that you want to make an offer on one of those homes, then you would sign again that it is okay for that realtor in my office and I to be working on each side of the contract. And if not, if you decided at that point that you weren't comfortable with that, then we would work out how to handle that, in finding one or the other representation. But that is one thing that we cover in that meeting too, exactly what dual agency means. We also talk about wire fraud, which is a huge problem, so make you aware of that. We're required to give you what's called a RESPA notice, and that is just disclosing Weichert's other lines of business and what the fees for those other lines of business are. You're not required to use them. It's just simply a disclosure, but we have to give that to you. And then there's some other forms on just consumer notices for buying homes. And so those are some common terms kind of glossary terms, if you will, for home buying that the state believes that you should be aware of, and so we have to give you those forms. We also talk about lead-based paint. Any home built before 1978 may have lead-based paint in it, so we cover lead-based paint and what kind of disclosures you may see on any home built before 1978. Um, and then we talk about any other questions that you might have in the home buying process, and kind of how that process works all the way to the end. So it's a very comprehensive meeting, and hopefully does a really good job of setting everyone's expectations and talks about how I work. And and in that process, you can ask questions and make sure that you feel like I'm going to be the right fit for you as well. So again, very important first step. I don't like to just run around and open doors for people without having that first meeting, because I think oftentimes without setting those expectations, people end up being let down. And we can spend an entire weekend looking at homes only to find out that we can't get you qualified for the home that you fall in love with, and then you're not happy with me. so um, so that's kind of the outline for the buyer consultation meeting and why it's an important first step in the home buying process. And I look forward to sitting down with you and being able to walk through that process. So thank you.